Okay, I've noticed there are some people that need to review some algebra concepts. So what we're going to go through here is just a couple of problems. For example, if I have something like 2x minus 4 equals x plus 12. A problem like this, you look at it and say, all right, I have variables on both sides. And I like to do housekeeping first, try and get all our variables to one side of the equation. So right now I'm going to subtract x here, because to get rid of something on one side, you subtract it off of that side. But with an equation, you have to do the same thing to both sides. So I'm going to subtract x from this side. So now the equation stays true. If I subtract from one side but not the other, the equation doesn't stay true, so everything has to happen equally on each side. So 2x minus x is x. I subtract from this one because these are like terms. And what I've left with over here is 12. Now I have x minus 4 equals 12, and I need to add 4 to both sides. Again, keeping the equation balanced, but I want x by itself, so I need to get rid of what's keeping the x from being by himself. X is a loner. He wants to be alone, so there we get x equals 16. And then you're done. Sometimes the problems are a little more complicated. You might have something like this. And you might say, oh boy, look at this mess. I don't know what to do. Well, this is really it's pretty simple. It's quite a simple process here. All you have to do is get your x's together. Now this time, I don't need to subtract 2x from both sides or anything like that because all my x's are on the same side of the equation. So I combine these two like terms. Combining like terms I can do on the same side of the equation. Okay, so they're both over here. So I get 2x and 3x is 5x. Then I'll combine these two like terms, the 1 and the negative 5. That gives me negative 4. Okay, so we have 5x minus 4 equals 71. Now, I say I want to get x by itself. I need to get rid of the stuff that's with it. You always do addition subtraction first with this. It's like backwards order of operations. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. And we get 5x equals 75. And now I'm going to divide by 5. To get x equals 15. Because the opposite of multiply by x is divide by x. So that's how we get x equals 15. All right. So far, so good. Now, sometimes the problem is a little more complicated. Now, these get a little tricky. All right, so I just finished up this problem here, so you want to sit in here and watch me write it. And we have 2x squared plus 7x minus 12 equals x squared plus 3x. And you say, wow, that looks complicated. What on earth should I do? Well, first, I notice I have x squared over here, and I have 2x squared over here. They're on other opposite sides of the equal sign. Well, that can't fly. I need to get this guy out of there. So I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides. I subtract from this side to get rid of it over here, because that'll give me 0 plus 3x. And when I subtract from this side, it's going to come off of the 2x squared because they're like terms. And I'm going to write everything else in the equation just the way it was. Okay. And now I look and say, all right, what's next? I've got this 3x here. Oh, and I've got a 7x here. And notice this is a quadratic, so I'm going to try and get this all away from here and get all my x's over to one side, so I need to get rid of this. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides, and when I subtract 3x from this left side, it comes out as 7x because they're like terms. Okay. And now we have something that looks like a quadratic equation. The real simple ones where we just factor over here. Okay, so I'm just going to factor that. I'm going to write my parentheses in here. When I factor x squared plus 4x minus 12, I know these two are going to be x's to make the x squared. And what I like to do is look at this number first and say, all right, I got two numbers that multiply to negative 12. And they're going to add up to 4. Now, right now, I'm just saying, all right, negative 2 and positive 6. Those are the two that work, because 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. 6 plus negative 2 is positive 4. So those are the two that happen to give me what I want. So I had to extend the page there. So right now, we're looking at x minus 2 and x plus 6. Those two things multiply to give me that. So now I have two things that multiply to 0. Well, if thing A and thing B multiply to 0, either thing A or thing B must be equal to 0. One of them has to, because you can't multiply two non-zero numbers and get 0. So I'm going to say either x minus 2 equals 0, or x plus 6 equals 0, because one of those two has to be 0. So now I just solve this equation, solve this equation. This one I add 2 to both sides, and this one I subtract 6 from both sides. And we're done.